I think for many of us who have had to deal with a pathological narcissist and have come to the realization of the reality of the situation we were in, most of us are aware that the narcissist was objectively wrong about a lot of the things they said, and that the narcissist was very unfair to us in the judgments they made and the way they blamed us for things. But while we may be consciously aware that the narcissist was wrong to say and do some of the things they did, I think that for a lot of us, there's still at least a little part of us that believes, at least on some level, in the things the narcissist told us about ourselves, or reasons that we should feel ashamed of ourselves or responsible for the abuse. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. I want to get into the ways that the narcissist's message to us may still be lurking in the back of our minds somewhere. And in some way, we might still believe in the things that the narcissist said. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. I want to start the video with part of what prompted it in the first place, and that is every now and then on one of my videos or my posts or reels, I'll get some jerk commenting something like, "You people just don't want to take accountability for the part that you played in this relationship," or "You're just trying to escape accountability and blame everything on the other person." And I mean, I could go on and waste my time trying to counter these arguments, but I think these must come from people who are probably abusive themselves, or are trying to defend abusive behavior, or maybe for some reason they don't believe that abuse exists, maybe because they're abusive. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I think that when an abuse victim hears something like this, it can really hit us in a way that harms us if we haven't really fully processed and healed from the emotional abuse that we've endured. And this can be part of this package of beliefs that we might carry with us after we've escaped the abusive relationship. So I want to first talk about accountability versus shame. I think that walking away from an abusive relationship and identifying it as abusive and accepting that we can't fix it and that we can't fix this other person or control their behavior is taking accountability. That's how you take accountability as an abuse victim. It's very different from a relationship where two people are just struggling to communicate or connect or meet each other's needs, and each one of them have to take accountability for the part they're playing. As an abuse victim, you are not accountable for the abuse. You are not accountable for somebody else's choice to abuse you or behave badly. And you cannot fix it. You cannot fix it by taking accountability for something that you have no control over. And taking accountability truly is acknowledging that and letting go of the things you can't control, acknowledging that you can't fix another person, and also taking accountability for the ways that you might be enabling the abusive behavior of another person with good intentions, probably, without feeling ashamed of it. Taking accountability for things you can control without feeling like you should be ashamed that you haven't done that yet, or that it took you X amount of time to realize that you were fighting a losing battle, or that you were trying to control things you had no control over, or that you were enabling somebody else's abusive behavior. So in my opinion, this content I create and the steps that maybe my content helps you make, the ways that you're able to set boundaries and make big changes in your life, I think that is accountability. That is how we take accountability, by accepting reality, accepting the limits of an abusive relationship, and moving on from things that we can't change. So that's the first thing I want to address, is the ways that some of us as abuse victims might believe that we've run away from our problems, that we weren't willing to stick it out to the end, that we threw something away instead of trying to fix it. I think taking accountability is acknowledging and accepting that all of that just doesn't apply to an abusive relationship. The only way to, quote, fix an abusive relationship is to walk away from it, because you can't do the work of two people to fix a relationship, especially when the other person is the only one that's destroying it. Now, let me get more into things that narcissists say to us, or abusive people say to us, that we may carry with us even after we've left them, and even after we've consciously discounted what they've said. There are still pieces of things that we might carry with us without even realizing it. So just as some examples, maybe a narcissist told you over and over again how lazy you are, and you don't even try, and you just sit around and do whatever you want while I do everything around here. And maybe there was a seed of truth to it. Maybe you were really tired a lot, or maybe nothing you did was ever good enough, so you just kind of gave up. But whatever seed of truth there was to this, maybe you consciously acknowledge and are aware that it was unfair for them to sit there and tell you how lazy you are. But at the same time, maybe there's still a part of you that gives a little bit of credit, or believes a little bit that, okay, I mean, I was a little bit lazy sometimes, so maybe they did have a point. Another example might be somebody that tells you that they cheated on you because of the way you were. So it's your fault that I cheated on you because you weren't meeting my needs, or you weren't keeping yourself up physically for me, or you weren't paying enough attention to me, or whatever. It's your fault that I cheated on you. I think most of us that have been through a situation like this, we consciously know that that's not fair, and it's almost laughable when somebody cheats on you and then blames you for cheating on you. But at the same time, I think we can still carry the seeds of truth with us after the relationship's over, and we might think to ourselves, okay, well, I guess I did, I could have paid a little more attention to them, or maybe I wasn't very affectionate for the last few months or whatever. But really, this was because this person hurt you every time you tried to reach out to them. I mean, you can make up your own reasons, but there's still this seed of truth, or these little things that you might still believe they have a point with. Like, okay, maybe it was my fault a little bit that they cheated on me. Maybe that's not wrong. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I really don't deserve to expect someone to be loyal to me. Another example of this kind of shaming is maybe being told that you're a bad parent. I know for me, I was specifically told that I was harming my son because I wasn't reading to him every night before he'd go to bed. And I feel like this was something that, I mean, to this day, I still think of, and I think, well, you know, I probably could have made more of an effort to read to him before bedtime. I didn't do that enough. That would have been nice. So this person had a point. But this person's intention, in my opinion, was really to shame me and to make me feel like I was a bad parent. And, you know, to this day, I still struggle with it a little bit because, well, he had a point. I wasn't reading to my son before bedtime. And wow, that must have done so much harm. And he was so concerned about the welfare of my son that he felt like he had to bring this up to me because I was being such a bad mom. Narcissists will find a seed of truth. They will look for something that's true, and they will blow it way out of proportion. They will find a reason to shame you, and then they will really double down and convince you why this is proof that you deserve to be cheated on. This is proof that you are lazy, that you're self-absorbed, that you're a bad parent, that you only think about yourself. Here's the proof that you're a terrible person. And whatever they find is true, but they've also taken it and blown it way out of proportion. And this can be really confusing for abuse victims who trust this person that's criticizing them. An example I've used a lot lately is the example of the hallway light. If you left the hallway light on one night and all of a sudden the narcissist comes along and they tell you that you're irresponsible and you never listen to them, and you don't care about how much the electricity bill costs, so you obviously don't care about the finances, and you aren't paying attention to anything, and yada, yada, yada. You know, they're taking this one little thing you did or didn't do, leaving the hallway light on, and blowing it way out of proportion and using it to prove to you that you're a horrible person. And you may years later still have this feeling that, oh, well, I mean, I did leave the hallway light on, and I mean, that isn't a good thing to do. So maybe they had a little bit of a point. And I'm going to get back to the hallway light later and explain why they don't have a point, like at all. Even though you might still think, well, but I did leave the hallway light on. I'm going to explain that that doesn't matter at all in the grand scheme of things and in an abusive relationship. Right now, I want to explain the difference between developing resentments between two relatively healthy people and in a narcissistic abusive relationship, because I think this is another thing that can really confuse abuse victims and can really cause abuse victims to believe that they're responsible for the abuse and that the things, their faults, their imperfections are the reason that the abuse happened, that it's our fault. Because while it's easy to look at a narcissist and the way that a narcissist takes a tiny thing and blows it way out of proportion, we could also argue that we do that as well. You know, quote, normal people do that as well. Sometimes you can build up a lot of resentment over time, and then one little thing just sets you over the edge and you say something you shouldn't have said, or you get really angry over something that seems really small because it's the last straw, or you're already really upset about other things. So what's the difference? I think as an abuse victim, if a narcissist or otherwise abusive person flips out at you over something that seems really trivial, they can make the argument that it's just the last straw for them, and you've just been so aggravating and so hard to deal with that of course they're going to get angry over this little thing because it's the last straw. So as an abuse victim, you can frame this in a way that makes the abuser seem more reasonable and makes you feel more responsible. So what's the difference? Let's say that I am in the kitchen cooking or cleaning or whatever, and I ask my husband to take the garbage out. And he says, okay, sure, yeah, but then he doesn't do it. And let's say an hour goes by and I ask him again to take the garbage out, and he says, oh yeah, I'll be right there. I'll take it out, right? And let's say that I've kind of built up this feeling that he never helps around the house and that I'm always doing everything. And then finally an hour later, he's sitting there watching football, not doing anything, and he still hasn't taken the garbage out. And I finally just lose it and I stick my head around the corner and I say, hey, I told you to take the garbage out. You never do anything around here to help me, right? Now, what if I'm a narcissist? What's the difference? You know, my husband in that instance might feel like, oh shoot, you know, yeah, I should have taken the garbage out. Like, she's right to be so angry with me. This is kind of my fault. You know, if he's somebody that's got that kind of personality where he's going to take accountability for making me upset, right? And I think that abuse victims typically do have a type of personality where they are able to take accountability, or at least try to address the problem when someone is upset with them. So let's say I'm an abusive narcissist and I'm in the same situation and I stick my head around the corner and I yell at my husband for not taking the garbage out. What's the difference here? I think as the abuse victim, it can be very confusing. And it can be very hard to tell the difference between a partner or a friend or family member who's legitimately just lost their patience and they have legitimate concerns or aggravations or annoyances with things that we've done or not done. Very hard to tell the difference between that and an abusive narcissist who's just looking for excuses to yell at you and shame you. So in this situation of not taking the garbage out and getting yelled at for it, I think a question you could ask yourself is, if I take the garbage out, if I get up and I apologize and I take the garbage out and then I come back and try to talk about this, is that going to make things better? I mean, Maybe for some people you need to let it sit for an hour or whatever, right? But is it possible for me to make this better by getting up and doing what they want and then maybe giving them a little time and then talking about it? Like, is there anything I can do to actually make this better? Because I think when you're dealing with a narcissist, you either know from experience or you will learn really quickly that when it reaches that point where the narcissist is yelling at you and criticizing you, there is nothing that will ever make that situation okay. There is nothing you can do to make them feel better or earn their forgiveness or repair whatever aggravation they feel. They will never forgive you for the thing they're yelling at you about. And so when you're dealing with a normal person who gets critical of you and loses their patience, I think it makes more sense. It's a situation that makes more sense. Now, maybe it's not okay for them to yell at you or insult you, right? But it at least makes sense. A sequence of events led up to this aggravation and them losing their patience, and you can trace it back and make sense out of it. When a narcissist yells at you and starts insulting you and shaming you, it's hard to make sense out of it. But we still feel like there must be grains of truth to it, because they will use something real, like maybe we really did forget to take the garbage out, or maybe we really did leave the hallway light on. But the rest of it doesn't really make any sense. Like maybe they will say something like, I told you 1,000 times to take the garbage out, when we actually don't remember them asking us at all. Or maybe I've told you 1,000 times to turn off the hallway light, when actually we don't remember them ever telling us that. And then we get confused. This confusion, in my opinion, is a big difference between just frustrated people that need to work on their relationship and an abusive relationship. Abusive relationships are confusing. They just don't make sense. And another confusing element to this will be the level of anger. Narcissists are already angry, and that's why they are looking for these things you did wrong. They're looking for excuses to shame you, to yell at you, to blame you for the way they already feel. So the anger they express often doesn't make any sense. Maybe you left the hallway light on, and they spend the next 3 hours screaming at you, throwing things. Their face is bright red, and they're calling you all kinds of names and insulting your mother, and you're just like, because I left the hallway light on? Like, why? I don't. And when you try to ask them or you try to understand why they're this angry, they just get more angry, and it just makes less and less sense. And I think in the example of yelling at my husband to take the garbage out, if I'm a quote unquote normal person, maybe I've watched things pile up, you know, like maybe I had to vacuum the whole house because he made a mess, you know, and he didn't vacuum. I had to vacuum. And maybe certain things like this happened, and I started getting annoyed. And then I asked him to take the garbage out, and he didn't take out the garbage, and it just built up. And I just got frustrated, and I finally lost my patience, and I yelled at him. That's kind of what happens with a quote unquote normal person, right? But with a narcissist, I'm already upset with my husband because my needs are not something that he can ever meet. And so I'm always frustrated with him, no matter what he does, no matter how hard he tries or doesn't try. I'm always unhappy and I'm always frustrated. And I can't really explain why without taking accountability for my own emotional problems, which I definitely don't want to do. And so when I see that he makes a mess and I have to go vacuum it up, instead of that adding to my frustration, in a way, it kind of validates me. Like, yeah, he just made this mess. This is why I feel so unsatisfied and so angry all the time. It is his fault. And then when he doesn't take the garbage out, you know, instead of it adding to my frustration and tipping me over the edge, it's giving me a reason. If I'm a narcissist, I actually kind of like that he has given me an excuse to finally unleash on him, because I have wanted to yell at him this whole time anyway for no real reason other than my own emotional problems. And now he forgot to take the garbage out. Awesome. This is perfect. Now I'm going to finally go yell at him, and then I will feel so much better. And I think if you really break down these events and pick them apart, I think you can see the difference, even though as the abuse victim, they can often look very similar. But I think that you can sense it over time that this person is looking for reasons to tear you down and shame you and insult you, versus somebody who's truly frustrated over things that you continue to do or that you don't address. Which brings me to another way that I think you can tell the difference is in the helplessness that you might feel. So if a narcissist is telling you how lazy you are, even if they're using real examples, like you are so lazy because you never sweep the floor. And you think to yourself, yeah, it's true. I never sweep the floor. I just let the dust build up. I guess I am kind of lazy. Even if you believe that, even if it's true, there's still a part of you that knows or learns that if you go sweep the floor, it's not going to fix anything. They're not going to be happy or satisfied. They're not going to say, oh, thank you for finally sweeping that, thanks for doing that. They're just going to find something else to complain about. So there's this helplessness. They're going to think I'm lazy no matter what I do. And maybe they're right because I never sweep the floor, but you still know that even if you sweep the floor, it's not going to change anything. They're not going to forgive you. There's nothing you can do to make it okay now. It's too late. You've already messed up by whatever horrible thing you did. In a narcissistic, abusive relationship, your efforts don't improve anything. Nothing you do makes anything better. Maybe it will for a minute, just to kind of trick you into thinking that you have any control here. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, your efforts have zero effect on how good things get or how bad they stay. You are completely helpless, and you can't help but feel this over time when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, because you can't communicate and nothing you do seems to matter one way or the other. If I'm in a relationship with someone who is just frustrated with me and I finally do what they want, or I make an effort to communicate, or I make an effort to meet their needs, it's probably going to actually help. It's probably going to actually move the relationship in a positive direction. And I think another really important thing to look at when we're dealing with abusive relationships and the way that an abuser will make us look at ourselves and the things that a narcissist will make us believe about ourselves is the way that we are being shamed. I think when someone is just frustrated with us, but they still love us and care about us, they're not going to try to make us feel like we're a bad person. So in the example of yelling at my husband because he's not taking the garbage out, I might be really frustrated with him and mad and upset, and I might yell. I might even tell him that he's being lazy, but I'm not trying to make him feel like he's a horrible person or that he deserves to be yelled at because he's so awful. I'm trying to tell him that the things he's doing or the things he's not doing, that's bothering me. Not that he is bothering me because of the kind of person he is. And I think narcissists will really make you feel this way, and abusive people as well will make you feel like you're inherently flawed. Like you deserve to be treated this way, and you should be ashamed of the kind of person you are. And that in a sense, you're so awful that you're pretty much irredeemable. And that's why no matter how hard you try, nothing will ever get better, because it's just hopeless because you're such a terrible person. And so all of these things combined together can, even after we get out of these abusive relationships, can really stick with us and can stay as these internalized beliefs of, okay, I got out of that horrible relationship and I got away from that person that was so mean to me, but I mean, I was kind of lazy, and I guess I was kind of a bad person, and I guess I did deserve to be cheated on a little bit in a way, because I wasn't meeting their needs, and I didn't clean enough, and I did leave the hallway light on, and I was a bad parent because I didn't read to my kid every night, and maybe I am a bad person, And maybe they had a point. And I've talked about this before, and I'm going to say it again. When you have this idea in your head that maybe the narcissist had a point or the abuser had a point, no, they didn't. Not even a little bit. And this is why. Nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. Not the most wonderful, amazing person in the whole entire world is perfect. There are always going to be things that you fall short on. There are always going to be things that someone can point to and say, oh, look at how you did this, or look at how you do this, if they're looking for that. And narcissists are looking for your imperfection. And there will always be something for them to find because you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And they're going to find it. They're going to look for it. They're going to find it. And then they're going to convince you that whatever that imperfection is, that's the reason that you deserve to be abused. That's the reason that you don't deserve to be loved. That's the reason that you're not good enough. That's the reason that it was kind of your fault that all of that stuff happened in the first place. When really what the message is because you're not perfect, you deserved for these horrible things to happen. And because you're not perfect, you should feel ashamed of the kind of person you are. Which I hope when I put it that way can help you see more clearly how unreasonable this is and how none of these things, even if there's a seed of truth to them, these aren't things that you should feel ashamed of. And these aren't things that you should feel caused the abuse or made it okay. And I also want to say that even if all the things the narcissist said about you were true, even if you were lazy and rude, and even if you left the hallway light on all the time because you didn't care about the electric bill, and even if you purposefully never took the garbage out and never swept the floor, and even if you were a bad mom, you didn't deserve to be abused. None of that makes abuse okay. None of that makes it okay for somebody else to tear you down and shame you and insult you and disrespect you in your own home. None of that makes it okay. And I think that narcissists project their own shame, their own toxic shame onto you so that you will be convinced that their abuse is your fault and or you deserve their abuse in some way. And this is a way that they can convince you to take accountability for their abuse so that they won't have to, so that they can pass all of that accountability onto you. And when you finally have had enough and you try to leave and rebuild your life with people who actually respect you, they will again come back and say, look at you, you can't even take accountability for your part in all of this. I don't care how many imperfections you have or what they are. I don't care what you've done. I don't care all of these things that you could point to and say, these are my flaws. This is what's wrong with me. These are the things I do wrong. None of those things are excuses for abuse. And none of those things are the reason that someone else chose to abuse you. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.